Hi, my name is Mark Brown, and this is Christy Brown, and we want to tell you the story of how our 3-year-old son Judah died, and then what happened next. So, over 3 years ago, we were at a friend's apartment, and we went there to catch up, a typical social event with our 3 children, including Judah, and they offered for us to swim. So we thought that was a great idea. It was a hot day. And we went down to the pool, and myself and my friend were at the barbecue, just starting to prepare to cook dinner. And Christy and her friend were poolside facing the pool with the children. And I'll get Christy now to kind of share what happened next.
So Judah and his siblings and friends were playing in the pool, and we were watching them. And Judah at some point got tired and thirsty, and he wanted to get out of the pool, and so he got himself out. He was wearing a puddle jumper, which is a typical flotation device that children his age use, and it was also what we thought would keep him safer in the water. So he got himself out of the pool, and he went over to his daddy and asked him for a drink and his towel. His daddy gave him some water and sent him over to me because I was the one who had his towel. I remember trying to put the towel around him with the puddle jumper on him, and it wouldn't go around him. And so I took it off and put the towel on, and I sat him right next to me. I turned then to tell my friend something, and then we both started scanning the pool to check heads and make sure our other children were okay. So then I turned and looked down to see if Judah was okay, and he was gone. A waterfall that was at the pool that he had been really interested in earlier that day, and he wasn't there. And so we started running around the pool looking for him, and I found him maybe a minute later, just off the steps of the pool in the water, face down. And I panicked and I froze and started screaming. I remember my friend running past me and getting in the pool and getting him out of the pool. I remember his body and I was terrified. And I remember her setting him down on the deck of the pool and my husband coming running.
So the first I knew something was wrong was just hearing a scream. My head snapped around, and that's where I saw a friend holding his limp body out of the water. I just immediately sprinted over there. I know how to do CPR. I think she'd laid him down. I picked him up, and I remember just temporarily, very briefly, just shocked at what was going on and disbelief. And then I sprang into action, and I started chest compressions. And I had been doing chest compressions for just a little while when he vomited. And I thought that was a good sign, but I was wrong. I learned later on that was a natural, an automatic response to the body when there's water in the stomach. It rejects it automatically. It's a muscular. It's not a statement of recovery. And I did CPR on him for quite some time. I think it was like 6 minutes. It felt like a long time, and nothing. And I just remember just pleading with God, praying that this would be a miracle that I could share with others in the future. My children are screaming. Christy is screaming. Friends are contacting 911. We had a ex-military medic came on scene who lived at the apartments. And then I fell into deep shock, and I just couldn't do any more. And my friend stepped in, and he started CPR until the first responders arrived. First responders came in, and they worked on him on scene, and then they took him, transported him to the ambulance, and they whisked him off. We went with him to the local pediatric intensive care unit. He was hooked up to all sorts of machines. He couldn't breathe by himself. Unfortunately, he started to sustain pretty serious brain damage. His heart, I think he went into cardiac arrest several times and was revived. So the CPR kept him alive long enough to get him to hospital, where he was then hooked up to machines. It gave us a little bit more time as a family with him to grieve and to be with him. It was a very difficult few days. We were there 2 days. We were very hopeful that he would recover. We knew that it would never be a full recovery, but what happened is that unfortunately he died. They did a brain activity test over a period, and he failed both. And it was utterly devastating. And to this day, it still is, even though it's been over 3 years, it feels every day is painful. The grieving process, it never lessens. It never gets easier. What's happened, or what is happening over time, is we're trying to make meaning out of grief. And for me, before I pass on to Christy, who's going to share about the Judah Brown Project. So when I pleaded to God as a prayer, when I was over him doing CPR, my faith is stronger now, and it's stronger now because I understand that God didn't cause it, but God was present with me weeping, and that my son, our son, is in heaven. And one day when the time comes, we'll be reunited with him. So Christy's going to happen pretty much immediately after, the following weeks after he died.
So when we were still in the PICU with him and he was on life support, that was the very first time that either of us had ever heard that drowning is the #1 cause of accidental death in children ages 1 to 4 years old. It's also the first time we heard that it's 14 times more likely for a child to die of a drowning accident than in a car accident. It's the first time I learned that puddle jumpers don't keep our children safe in the water. They actually contribute to drownings by giving them a false sense of security in the water, helping them think that they can swim when they can't. So when we were there, I got really angry that this was the first time that I'd heard any of this. Why hadn't I heard it from my pediatricians, from the caregivers that took care of Judah every day? And I got angry, and I got livid. And his preschool teacher at that point contacted us and said, "What can I do to help? I want to help their family. What can I do?" And I said, "We can't let this happen to any other children. We cannot let this happen to any other parents. Parents should know how to keep their children safe around the water." And she took that and she developed the Judah Brown Project out of it. And the very first thing that we did as the Judah Brown Project is came up with water safety pamphlets. And on these pamphlets are simply the layers of protection that keep children safer around the water. They detail to parents exactly what they can do to keep their children safer. And we put these pamphlets in pediatricians' offices, in preschools, in various different doctors' offices and pool companies. Anyone who has access to young children can carry these pamphlets and give them to the families that they serve. We have them in over 350 offices across the United States right now and growing every day. Then we decided that wasn't enough, and then we wanted to do more. And we started raising money for survival swim lessons. And survival swim lessons are different from traditional swim lessons because they teach very young children, as young as the age of 7 months old, how to survive if they were ever to fall into the water. And this is something that under the age of 6 years old, children cannot learn the traditional strokes of swimming well enough to save themselves if they were ever in a water emergency. So these skills that survival swim teaches are critical. And we started raising money for these lessons and then providing these lessons for children whose parents can't afford them themselves. And to date, we have given over 45 lessons to children, and we're growing with that as well. We also provide CPR classes for parents, and we require those classes of parents of our scholarship recipients, and we do that every other month. And we go out to schools and we teach children at the schools how to keep themselves and their siblings safer around the water. And we are currently in 6 different school districts around the Houston area, and we're growing also every day, getting into more and more schools. We also provide parent trainings and professional trainings to teach people what it looks like to drown, why it happens, and how they can stop it from happening.
So the number one mission of Judah Brown Project, if you could summarize it, is simply this: we don't want the parents to go through what we went through and what we are going through. We want to eradicate childhood drowning. We discovered that it's the number one cause of death amongst 0 to 4-year-olds in America, outside of birth defects. Number one accidental cause of death. It is a serious issue facing America. And we have experienced it personally, and we don't want any other parents, families, or friends to go through what we are going through. So if you want to check out Judah Brown Project, there is a ton of resources, and there's some fantastic stuff to check out and see. And the website is
JudahBrownProject.org.
It's on Facebook, Instagram, obviously the web. Check it out. And together we invite you to become part of ending this horrific situation with so many children drowning. God bless you.